Well, welcome everyone. This is the FRS Educast for Newcastle. My name is Sherry Coutu, and I'm delighted to be here with you today to host this 30-minute session. It has three parts. We're going to start by looking at the releasing some data on fast growth businesses run by women in Newcastle. We're focusing on scale ups because they are fast growing businesses or very fast growing businesses that drive the economic growth in our city. And we're highlighting women because it's International Women's Day. And we are going to, that's part one. Part two, we're going to speak to Charlotte, who has an absolutely fascinating role in sustainability. And we really want to hear about your journey, ideally starting when you were at about 11. And then we have Sherry Coutu, who's a student at Newcastle University, who's going to talk a little bit about where they are, and then we'll have a general chat. Eben, who's the regional sort of coordinator, again will feel free to ask questions at any time. I think between the three of us, we're sort of covering financial services, life sciences, and construction. So I think many different pathways. Each of these kind of fueled by mathematics, and so I'm going to start with fast growing things, and really just sort of think about that. So just thinking about a moment where we are, we have released data today about 9 female-founded businesses in Newcastle. They're employing about 1,700 people. They generate 81 million in turnover, and they are growing on average 37 times faster than the economy. Which means that because the whole economy is not growing that quickly, we need fast-growing businesses that use maths to regenerate and basically make things work. Interesting, in and around Newcastle, we've got professional services companies. There's quite a lot of leisure companies, quite a few retail companies, and built environment infrastructure, which is, I think, possibly where we would categorize Charlotte's company, and then sort of life sciences is about 10% of the makeup in that area. We want every teacher and student to be able to name the business leaders that are doing super interesting things in your city, and to also understand what their pathway was from when they were 11 or 12 to what they were doing, so that we can unlock that that mystery of how do people who are doing really interesting things, saving the environment, these sorts of things, or saving, or working on cancer, which I think you are, Cherismel. What led you to your pathway, and did you think that you would be doing that, when you were really young? And maybe, and this might be for Cherismel, because you are in uni at the moment, and you have the majority of your, the vast majority of your sort of professional life ahead of you. We know from LinkedIn that the average number of roles between graduating from school and retiring is 25, and that there's 7 identifiable career themes that we go through. So be interested to hear, your other passions and what else you might find yourself doing, possibly in the next 10 years, if that's not too big an ask. But let me start over with you, Charlotte. Love the background and behind you, and I think well done. I think that looks brilliant. But talk to us about, what did you think that you would do when you were young? Can you describe what you're actually doing now? And so that, again, so it's tangible, so that if you were 11 or 12, you could understand, and describe to your parents tonight maybe what Charlotte Flower is doing, and again, sort of what excites you, and why you chose that as a role.
Yeah, of course. So when I was 11, 12, I was at school. I really enjoyed maths, science. I enjoyed learning about the world around us. I think that was what I enjoyed. And growing up, I thought I wanted to do something based around science, but I really didn't know what. And I can remember finding architecture around age 15, and I was like, oh, maybe that's something I could see myself in. And then I switched back to kind of thinking that I'd probably study science at university. And then I ended up finding civil engineering when I was about 17. So it was, it's not like I've always known that I was going to do this. I found it when I was starting to look into university courses, and I was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting to me. It was the mix of all the different things that you learn, the aspects of design, the aspects of maths, the physics and science basis as well. So I went to university, I studied civil engineering, and then I've now been working for 5.5 years as a civil engineer in the maritime sector. So I look at ports, harbours, shipyards, steel design, concrete design. On a day-to-day basis, I'm doing calculations, writing reports, and I've actually put some wind turbines behind me today because that's part of what I'm moving into at the moment. I'm looking at ports for offshore wind. So the energy sector, the renewable energy sector is growing quite a lot at the moment, and we need ports to support that, to support the development of offshore wind. So that's something that I really enjoy at the moment. That's a part of my job that, yeah, I
What do
really like.
you what do you have to do to a port to make it capable of having wind?
Yeah.
Because again, again for a younger audience, even for me, I can't imagine what that might involve. Can you unpick that a little bit?
Yeah, so wind turbines are growing in size all the time. So the ones that we're seeing at the moment are all fixed to the seabed. So they either have jacket type structures, which are like truss structures made of steel, or they're simply monopiles. So it's a big steel pile that's in the seabed. And these structures, as I say, are getting bigger. So ports need to adapt to have longer key lengths. They're bigger vessels that are moving these components around. So it's all about how we get these vessels into the ports, onto the berth, able to load components on, and then these vessels actually go out and they have quite big cranes on sometimes to lift parts into place offshore. So it's those sorts of challenges that we look at. So equally, it's the water depths in ports that we need to consider. So as vessels are getting bigger, the water depths need to be deeper. Access channels to access ports. It's lots of different challenges.
Okay. And do you work alone or are you on a team? Can you talk a little bit about what a day sort of or a week might be like?
Yeah, of course. So engineering is all about working in a team. So I work with other engineers. I work with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. Occasionally architects are involved in some of the work we do. But then equally, there are parts of my job that I do as an individual. So if I'm sitting down looking at specific calculations of how we can make a quay wall longer, and what sort of steel sections we might need, the concrete that needs to be designed, then I'll sit down and work through that on my own, but then someone will check that and it'll go through an approval process. I then work with CAD technicians to get drawings done. And then in terms of
CAD means
computer aided design. So yeah, we use lots of different software in our jobs. So we have technicians who support us with doing the drawing work. So yeah.
fantastic. And I know that when we're in school, we sometimes think that we might stop learning or slow down our learning when we leave school. But I'd be interested to hear your perspective if you think you learn more or less than when you were in school, and how the learning might be different. How do you pick up things that you might not know, but you have to get to know in order to do your role?
Yeah, I think in school it's a lot of kind of being told things, whereas when you're working as an engineer, there's a lot of problem solving involved, and a lot of that involves independent research. So I use search engines such as Google to kind of go and look up information if I need it. We then discuss with other experts in the field, with kind of the port owners and operators themselves as well, to gather information. And then we're able to use all the information that we collect, and we use design guidance that's kind of available to engineers, and that's what we base our designs on. But even then, especially in maritime, there can be challenges. Some codes are written for buildings. We're not looking at buildings, so we have to adapt what we find. And often, again, it's about using that teamwork and network that you have to discuss problems and come up with the best solution.
That's great. And do you often work with smaller entrepreneurial companies in your sort of value chain? How do you ever interact with with those, or and if so, how does that work?
Yeah, we work with lots of different people, and sometimes we need kind of innovative solutions to what we're looking at, and they often come from some smaller or maybe medium-sized companies. So if we're looking at a specific project where we need a certain item or solution for our port, we'll reach out to the supply chain and investigate the solutions that they can offer and work quite closely in that way. And then when construction reaches site as well, then they often become more involved and can input in that way.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I remember a few years ago we had no wind turbines, and I remember the race to create the different types and the best types, and often those were entrepreneurs who were really keen about sustainability and about being able to use clean energy. But they need to do work with very, very large infrastructure companies like the ones that you work with, so that they can sell stuff to them. But again, which is novel and solves problems that are vexing. And there's a joy in working with people to bring about I guess a better pathway. Um, I'm going to invite in Charismel if I can. Now you are a student at the moment, and I think you got a pretty interesting story. Again, from you had been a teacher of English previously, but now you're working in the life sciences. So can you talk about, and well, I mean studying as well. So can you talk about your pathway from when you were younger to now? Would love to hear that, and then I'll open up questions for both of you.
Thank you very much for having me here. Well, as you may know, I am an international student. I come from the Dominican Republic, which is in the Caribbean. As you can picture, like I was in school there. I was like maybe 12 years old, and at that time, I thought I was going to go into law. I like law and like being a lawyer, which if we see that back in time, it's a profession that was not very for women at that time, or maybe years past. And so I've always seen that, like, I'm grateful that I am in this generation, because we have seen how women have been making like their path into like a man's world. And at the end of my high school, everything changed. I started looking at science and how I like my desire of helping people. So I went to med school in the Dominican Republic, and I graduated as a doctor. My major is that I'm a clinician. So while studying and as living in a underdeveloped country and having a low income background, I had to work. So I went to school to an institute to learn English, and I did well. So I went into a program in the government that was offering part-time jobs as teachers. So people that had very good grades in English, they had the opportunity to teach others. So I got that part-time job so I could go into med school and be working part-time jobs as a teacher. So I was always like looking for things that I could do, but not just like working to get the money, but to be doing things that could teach me things. So I developed different skills, communication skills and critical thinking. And I learned how to organize groups, to teach, and how to organize myself to give a lesson while I was also learning to become a doctor. And then I continued, like there was no thing that I could put in my mind that I couldn't do. And I think that's something that I have learned from past generations, that women are empowered of doing whatever they put in their mind.
So
So
what brought you to Newcastle? Because you're also in Newcastle and studying there.
yes,
What and how does that relate to what you what you did before? Because I want to bring again what's going on in Newcastle. So what
yes.
are you enjoying it? And have you seen any of these wonderful wind turbines that Charlotte's putting everywhere? But and how different is that from the country that you originated from? But talk a little bit about what drew you to university outside of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I was just gonna go there. So after graduating from that school, there's also another program in my country that they have connections with the UK. They were offering this master's in cancer, and it's very. I mean, I was thrilled. Like, this is something that I could do, and it's like advances in science that I cannot have in my country. And I was like, I'm gonna go do it. And I applied and I got it, and I'm here investigating in cancer and doing research, which is huge. I didn't see myself, like, let's say 3 years ago. I didn't imagine that I was going to be here doing this exciting things that I'm doing here.
Okay, that's brilliant. And I guess it's fairly obvious, but can you tease out for us how you use maths to solve problems with cancer? And I guess the objective is to make cancer less. But how is it that you and with your background can make a contribution to that?
Well, I could say that math itself have it also have helped me with developing skills, and I can say that even being in science and being in medicine, it's not far from math, because it's everywhere. Like, we are always like putting numbers in, like doing statistics and calculating, like, possibilities, or how our patients can get better, and how this investigation that I'm doing is going to help, and everything. It's at the end you need to show numbers, so of course you use math for all of that. And it's very important, because you need to understand it, and you need to do like many calculations, of course, not as much as an engineer would do, but we do use it, and it helps a lot.
Well, I mean, I think you may well use it in different ways than an engineer would, but
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Um, Even, do you have any questions that you'd want to ask of Charlotte or Sharazmel?
Yes, I have a question each for both of them. Thank you, Charlotte, for coming, and Charis, thank you so much. I have learned so much in a few minutes. Thank you. I'd like to ask Charlotte, generally from where I come from, I'm Nigerian. Engineering is still not a very popular subject for women to study. So I'd just like to know, what is your experience like? Like, on the average, how many women do you work with? Do you feel alone, or do you have a lot of women as colleagues?
Yeah, so I think maritime is a slightly difficult industry, in that we have maybe less women than other parts of civil engineering. So in general, civil engineering does attract quite a few women. So on my course at university, it was a third women in my year, which was quite, positive, I felt. But then, yeah, maybe maritime, at the moment, there were less women. So I really enjoy doing these STEM events to try and encourage more women to kind of follow what I'm doing, because I think it's great. I really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy being an engineer. But there are still challenges, and it would be great to see more women doing civil engineering and in the industry, and yeah, it would be a positive step.
Well, I think just a quick comment on that. I think being an engineer has unlocked your ability to make a really positive impact on our planet. That's got to be very attractive to both boys and girls.
Yeah.
And what I like is that role models really make it easier for others to see that they can also be that. So, thank you for being that, and for explaining also that you feel, but you like what you do, right? It's not
Yeah.
overwhelmingly difficult. And
No, exactly. To me, anyone can do it. And if you enjoy maths and science at school, then yeah, definitely consider going into a career in engineering, because it can be really fulfilling and you are helping society and communities, as you say. So yeah, it's making a positive impact.
And I just a tip of the hat to, I'm sure in your company, well, I'm not sure, but I suspect in your company, there may be a number of apprentices, and many people, choose later they find that something that they're interested in, and that's also a pretty good route to go into different industries in. And there's such a need in these new emerging industries that they don't necessarily insist on you having a civil engineering degree, because they feel that they can teach you what you need to know on the job, and with supplemental studies, whatever it is you need to be successful. And I definitely didn't understand or see that when I was younger.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, sorry. Eben, did you have a question for Charisma as well?
Yes. I just wanted to know, because from my background too, I was just interested in the part about your story, how you switched from wanting to become a lawyer to now being a doctor and doing a research on cancer. Personally, I wanted to be a doctor and now I'm a lawyer. So I just want so I would just like to know, at what point can you really identify one particular event? I ask because arriving at that point of knowing that this is what I want to do with my life is something that students tend to struggle with. Like, is there an event, or how did you arrive at that decision?
Well, something that I always knew is that I wanted to help people. I know being a lawyer is something that you could actually do. Like, you do help people being a lawyer, you do help people being a doctor. But then when I was in high school, like, my mind was more clear. I was like, okay, I think, yeah, I want to help people. That's something that I'm sure. But then in what way? And I was more, I fell in love with biology and physiology. And I was like, I changed from like, okay, I like bit like law, but then this is something that is calling me more. So I just, like, being like coming from the primary school to high school, and looking at the subject itself and the how the body worked and everything, just, it was like a calling. So I changed because, I mean, I was still helping people, but it's something that I just liked more. So I went from law to med school.
I was going to say, even I might pick on you and say, talk a little bit about why is law your calling at the moment, and how is it going to help you have the impact on the world that you want to have, and also what brought you to Newcastle?
Yes, for me, while I was in secondary school, we call it secondary school back home in Nigeria. For my first 5 years, I was in the sciences. I was doing sciences because there is this idea that if you're bright, you do the sciences. If you're not that bright, you do the arts. So I just found myself doing sciences, and the popular career was becoming a doctor. But as I realized my strength, I realized that I was more of a lawyer than I would be a doctor. Even though I know that I could succeed at anything that I wanted to do, but I just felt it was better to hone in on my strengths. And I found that the heart, reading, I love reading. I could read for no reason. And I could read anything. And I discovered that when I was in primary school, I would read my sister's books, I would read my brother's books, I would just read anything. So it was just that realizing that I love to talk, to make my points. I love to have arguments. And I just found that I was more inclined towards the art. So
Okay.
why did I come to Newcastle? I've been in the academics for years. I was teaching back home in Nigeria. So I earlier came to Warwick. I was at Warwick for my master's. I went back home. Then I wanted to do my PhD and I saw an opportunity here at Newcastle, which was fully funded. I applied and that's why I'm here doing my PhD. Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you. So I think if I were trying to tease out common themes between all of what you've said, I think all of you exhibit immense curiosity, which is brilliant, and it led you to good places where you feel empowered to make a difference, taken slightly different routes. You're representing, I guess, the legal profession, the sustainability or sort of heavy industry, and also the life sciences, all of which are fascinating industries, which are really important and increasing in importance. And can only wish you all the best of luck going forward. If you are a teacher in Newcastle, we'd love to invite you to ask again Charles, Charosmel, and others that are in our available in our database to come in and talk to your students. And even I know that you will be making posts on social media about other speakers that are available and other pathways that are available, because you often, if you can't see it, you can't be it, as we said earlier. And there's many invisible things that are fascinating to be in, and great careers. So on International Women's Day, I wish you a brilliant International Women's Day. I hope it's very high energy for you. And thank you for what you're doing. And especially thank you for sharing your stories with us today. I'm very grateful for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But go well.
Bye.